Okay, after a long time of not recording, I'm back again to record the following passage of test number one. So here we have passage three. Um, all the time before you go through the passage, you have what you have to understand is question orders. As you can see, we have several types of questions. First one, we have matching information. So matching information. So they do not. So I'm just gonna say they do not follow the order. However, we have summary completion, and then we have a summary completion. Summary completion, that is that they do follow the order, but not always. On the other hand, we also have one thing. We have classification, but here it is kind of names, matching names. Matching. Say um, matching names. They always names follow the order, but statements don't. Okay, statements don't. That's what you have to know. So what I'm going to do here is that I will try to find, first of all, basically I'm not going to read the matching information, so because it's pointless. Once if I read the first paragraph A, and then I come back and see and refer to every single statements made in here, and try to find if any information can be found from paragraph A, and then slowly I can proceed to finding the summary completion. So basically, if I have this keyword here called Holger Krag, if Holger Krag should be basically at the very end of the paragraph, if I am not mistaken, if because usually they come at the very last paragraph, but since it is, oh, there you go, we have Holger Krag. So the committee gives advice on how does something. The committee developed guidelines on space sustainability, on how the sustainability of space can be achieved. So guidelines. So what do we have? Have developed guidelines on space sustainability. Those include inactivating satellites. So those is a referencing. What you need also, on the other hand, from reading is that in reading you need several things. First one, you need vocabulary. Second, you need grammar. Third, you need referencing. Referencing are words like this, that, those, them, and many more. It keeps on going. All right, so these are the things that you need to know. Now, basically, I found the first answer, sustainability, and I can basically highlight it over here. We have the word sustainability, and I'm just gonna put a number 32. There you go. I'll put it number 32, and then just maybe developed guidelines. All right, developed means developed means they are advising. So develop guidelines on space sustainability. Those include inactivating satellites at the end of their useful life by venting pressurized materials or leftover fuel. All right, so if you read paragraph A, first of all, so last year commercial companies, military and civil departments and amateurs sent more than 400 satellites into orbit. Every four times the early average in the previous decade. Numbers could rise even more sharply if leading space companies follow through on plans to deploy hundreds to thousands of large constellation of satellites to space in the next few years. All the traffic can lead to disasters. So we have 10 years ago, a U.S. commercial Iridium satellite smashed into an inactive Russian communication satellite, okay, called Cosmos 2251, creating thousands of new pieces of space shrapnel that now threaten other satellites in low Earth orbit. The zone stretching up to 2,000 kilometers in altitude. Although there are roughly 20,000 human-made objects in orbit, from working satellites to small rocket pieces, and satellite operators can't steer away. That means they can't get away from every potential crash because each move consumes time and fuel that could otherwise be used for a spacecraft's main job. Alright, so basically we understand the paragraph. So reference to the cooperation that takes place to try to minimize risk. So we have two things, minimizing risks and cooperation, an explanation of person's aims. If you find a person's aim, you need to find a person who's talking about his plans, who's trying to achieve, A description of major collision that occurred in space. This is paragraph A. As you can see, paragraph A already we found it. A major collision means smashed into an inactive Russian communication satellite. This is the part that we need to highlight here. So we have 29. We have 29 over here. I'm just gonna say question, and also all the way here as well. Question 32. Whoops, not that part, please. There we go. Done. Now, also we can find highlight the names. First one we have Caroline Fruet. For this time, I'm going to choose maybe green. I have first one Caroline Fruet. First one, but also on the other hand, I'll try to see if she or he is mentioned before that. So as far as I can see, he's not mentioned. We have Holger Krag, already mentioned here. There we go. Also, Krag, what happens to those that fail or go bankrupt? He asked. They are probably not going to spend money to remove their satellites from space. Okay, we have his quotes here. All right, Marlon Sorge. We have Marlon Sorge, or Sorge. I don't know how to pronounce that. And Moriba Ja. We have that Moriba Ja. So we have Ja, and we have Moriba Ja here. That's it. Now let's try to read paragraph B now. Concern about space junk goes back to the beginning of the satellite era, but the number of objects in orbit is rising so rapidly that researchers are investigating new ways of attacking the problem. All right. Several teams are trying to improve methods for assessing what is in orbit so that satellite operators can work more efficiently in ever more crowded space. Some researchers are now starting to compile a massive data set that includes the best possible information on where everything is in orbit. Others are developing taxonomies of space, working on measuring properties such as the shape and the size of an object so that satellite operators know how much to worry about what's coming their way. So the alternative, many say, is unthinkable. All right, just a few uncontrolled space crashes could generate enough debris to set off a runaway cascade of fragments, rendering near-Earth space unusable. If we go on like this, we will reach a point of no return. There we go. We will reach a point of no return, says Caroline Fruet. If we have Caroline Fruet, what do we have? Knowing the exact location. So with one thing we also need to make sure, I'm going to choose a cyan color here. You may use any letter more than once. Knowing the exact location of space junk. Knowing the exact location. Space should be available to everyone. Should be preserved for future. A recommendation regardless of is widely ignored. I'm not really sure here, but let me just read on top. Okay. A reference comparison between tracking objects in space and efficiency of transportation system, and reference to our efforts to classify space junk. All right. So what do we have here then? So basically, Caroline Fruet. If we go on like this, we will reach a point of no return. There's a risk we will not be able to undo the damage that occurs in space. 40, basically, that's what Caroline Fruet is saying. Okay, let me just remove that. We will not be able to undo the damage. That is the part that is trying to refer. We will reach a point of no return. Reach a point of no return. And at the end I will try to build a table to show the paraphrases. Okay, we have A. Also, in terms of that, other than that, so we have, what do we have? Reference to efforts to classify space junk. Maybe several teams are trying to improve methods for assessing what is in orbit so that so satellite operators can work more efficiently in ever more crowded space. This is the part. Yeah, so some researchers are now starting to compile a massive data set that includes the best possible information on where everything is in orbit. Others are developing taxonomies of space, working on measuring properties such as the shape of and size of an object so that satellite operators know how much to worry about what's coming in their way. concern about space junk goes back to the beginning of satellite era, but the number of objects in orbit is rising so rapidly that researchers are investigating new ways of attacking the problem. So, um, yeah, that's basically the basically what I think. A reference to efforts to classify space junk. Um, classify means grouping. One is trying to compile a massive data set that includes the best possible information of where everything is in orbit. The other ones are developing taxonomies of space, working on measuring properties such as the shape and size of an object, so that satellite operators know how much to worry about what's coming their way. Very interesting, I would say, but let me just give it a B. If I find the alternative paragraph, I'll just highlight that. Moreover, even as our ability to monitor space objects increases, so too does the total number of items in orbit. That means companies, governments, and other places are collaborating in new ways to avoid a shared threat. This is self-explanatory, as you can see. This is question number 27. Question 27. You can just basically highlight it there. This is paragraph C. Very easy to do that. Cooperation means collaborating in new ways to avoid a shared threat. Avoid means to minimize risk. All right. And also, international groups such as the Interagency Space Debris Coordination Committee have developed guidelines on space sustainability. We have over there. The committee advises that when satellites are no longer active, any unused, and if you remember, we have a part called what is that called? The intergovernmental groups. No, there we go. Leftover. I'm sorry for that. We have leftover fuel. So there's going to be fuel. So answer is going to be fuel. Whoops. I have fuel over there. So leftover fuel. Let me just please highlight that. Thank you. Question 33. All right. There we go. Makes much better sense, I guess. Yep. All right. Fuel or pressurized materials that could cause something should be removed. That might lead to explosions. Explosions, like it means to lead to. So explosions is the answer here. Explosions. So we have explosions. That lead to explosions. We have over here. So let me just give this a number. Question number 34. Okay. All right. Although operators of large satellite constellations accept that they have obligations as stewards of space, Holger Crack points out that the operators become something are unlikely to prioritize removing their satellites from space. What is that he's saying? The international government groups also advise lowering satellites deep enough into the atmosphere that they will burn up or disintegrate within 25 years. Points out that operators that become something. But so far, only about half of all missions have abided. You can see half of all missions have abided. There's a part where he says a recommendation regarding. So there you go. But so far, only about a half of all missions have been abided by this 25-year goal. Holger Crack has said that part. So I'm gonna say question 38. Okay, there you go. Question 38. All right. So Holger Crack, that is widely ignored. 38. A recommendation that regarding something that's widely ignored. So this is going to be B here. All right. Then. So head of the European Space Agency Space Debris Office and what is that? Darmstadt, Germany. Operators of the planned large constellation of satellites say they will be responsible stewards in their enterprises in space, but Krag worries that problems could increase despite their best intentions. What happens to those that fail or go bankrupt? Going bankrupt. So bankrupt is going to be the answer here. So becoming bankrupt. So question 35. We basically found another one. All right, so completion has been finished. All right, we go moreover. If we have anything that regarding paragraph C, we have done it as well. Now we will go to the following paragraph. I highlighted everything, I guess, here. In theory, given the vastness of space, satellites operators should have plenty of room for all these missions to fly safely without ever nearing nearing another object. So some scientists are tackling the problem of space junk by trying to find out where all the debris is to a high degree of precision. So, what would alleviate the need for many of the unnecessary maneuvers that are carried out to avoid potential collisions? If you knew precisely where everything was, you would almost never have a problem. So there we go. We have a fantastic answer, which is going to be, says Moreland search. It's going to be C. Knowing exact location means knew precisely where everything was. Okay, so we have that. We have question 36. We have 36 over here. And then just give this a highlight. There we go. So, moreover, D. Okay, do we have anything? No personal aims, no tracking obsession. Okay, anyways. The field is called space traffic management. Space traffic management is, I think this is going to be already self-explanatory, which is an answer to question number 30. So because it's similar to managing traffic on the roads or in the air. So comparison between tracking objects and efficiency of a transportation system. That's basically what I need. And I'm not going to basically read about that because it's similar to managing. Think about a busy day at an airport, says Maribaja, and astrodynamics at the University of Texas at Austin. Planes line up in the sky, landing and taking off close to one another in a carefully choreographed routine. Air traffic controllers know the location of the planes. This basically, yeah, that's it. So it's going to be paragraph E. There we go. So an additional problem is that there's no authoritative catalog that accurately lists the orbits of all known space debris. So I need one more answer. There's a conflicting information of where some satellites are in space. Moriba Jah. Jah illustrates this with a web-based database that he has developed. It draws on several sources, such as catalogs maintained by the US and Russian governments, to visualize where objects are in space. When he types in an identifier for the particular space objects, the database draws a purple line to designate its orbit. Only this doesn't quite work for a number of objects, such as Russian rocket body designated in the database as object number 32280. When Jah enters the number, the database draws two purple lines. The US and Russian sources contain two completely different orbits for the same object. Jah says that it is almost impossible to tell which is correct unless a third source of information made it possible to cross-correlate. Jah describes himself as a space environmentalist. I want to make space a place that is safe to operate, that is free and useful for generations to come. There we go. He's talking about his personal aims, which is basically a person's aims. So 28 is going to be the answer here. 28, question 28. I'm going to take that and highlight it and bingo. There we go. So it's going to be paragraph F. I think we basically have done it. But there's a conflicting information about where some satellites are in space. Conflicting information means that information that is not 100% accurate. So therefore, only this doesn't quite work for a number of objects. Russian sources contain two completely different orbits for the same object. Almost impossible to tell which is correct. Only a third source of information made it possible to correlate. I think that's what Moriba Jah said, but because other than that we don't have a different paragraph. Moriba Jah. That's because I believe that she's saying that conflicting information. I mean, he's saying conflicting information about where some satellites are in space. It illustrates this. So an additional problem is that there's no authoritative catalog that accurately lists the orbits of all known spaces debris. So Jah illustrates this with a web-based database that he has developed, and it draws on several sources, such as catalogs maintained by the US and Russian governments to visualize where objects are in space. When he types in an identifier for a particular space object, the database draws on a purple. I'm sorry, guys, I have 1 minute. So, I'm sorry, I had a phone call. Again, So yeah, that's basically what I think is space should be available to everyone, should be preserved for the future. Oh, look at that. He also said this: I want to make a space, generations to come. Moribaja said two things in a row. And we also have this: you may use any letter more than once. So we have DD, we have two times. So there you go, guys. We finished passage 3. I think it was basically fairly easy to find the answers. So yeah, if you have any questions, make sure to comment down below, and don't forget to subscribe, for of course, if you haven't. And yeah, if you have, and again, you have any questions, make sure to comment it. And yeah, thank you very much for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next episode.